Hello everyone, it is Caitlin, and today we are making bustles and underskirts for the 1870s and the 1880s. Alright, I have been working on patterning this bustle out based on the single picture that I have. I've never done this error before, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just looking at a picture and going, this looks like it might be it. So this is what I got. It's 3 pieces obviously, well 4 if you count the waistband, but I'm not counting that yet. So here's the base layer, this is the bottom part, and then the crescent shaped one is this, and it sits on top, and then the little square, or rectangle rather, that sits on the very top. So we're going to go ahead and do this. This piece is not highly padded, it looks like it's just very lightly padded, so I'm going to go with batting as opposed to the, we're calling it horsehair, that we're using for the rest of it. So I'm going to go over to the machine. I am going to be using my original 1880s machine. Actually, I say mine. The one I borrowed from a friend. That I am borrowing from a friend. And we're going to sew this up entirely with that antique machine. Alright, it is sewn together. I have cut away the excess batting. I left the seam allowance for the cotton, but not the batting, because I didn't want it to be too terribly bulky. And then I also clipped my corners, because that's the thing you should do. So we're going to turn it inside out. We're going to iron that down, and I'm also going to iron the seam allowance down. So we have an opening here. We're going to want to close that up. Next we're working on the crescent shape, which is the middle one. So same thing except without the batting. So I'm going to leave a space here so I can stuff it. Here's a little horseshoe shape. I clipped the corners as we did last time, and I also kind of clipped this curve so that it will lay nicely. I'm going to turn it inside out. I think we can get fake hair pretty easily. This I've had. It came in far too dark for my hair, and I didn't feel like going through the hassle of, turning it back in and getting the hair that, I needed. So, yeah, let's get a little bit more. It won't take a whole third hank, but it's going to need a little bit more. And then same thing, we're going to just take this little hole, pin that shut, and we'll sew it together in a little bit. Alright, and here's the little bustle pad. So I cut some lace. I cut it about 50 inches long, and I'm going to leave this part without lace because this is going to be sewn onto the waistband, and why have lace there? You could though. I can't see in the picture whether there's lace there or not. So if you wanted to do lace all around, just cut it a little bit longer. We're going to go ahead and gather. I put in a gathering thread on my lace. And the original does not look very gathered, so I think I did it like 1.5 times the amount of space I need to cover. Now that we have that sewn on, we're going to take the other piece and put it on top. Or if you're me and you forgot to separate them, that's not going to work. You're not going to see your lace. I didn't feel like taking all that stitching out, so I just cut a third one. And now this has been fixed, so we can go ahead and turn it inside out. Make sure you're turning inside with the lace bit. That's not it. This one should be it. Yes, there's lace. Okay. Actually, first I am going to clip these corners a little bit. And just like the last one, we're not going to iron this one. We're just going to stuff it. And I don't think this is going to use a full hank of hair. I think it's going to use a little less than a full hank of hair. Could be wrong though. You want to stitch it down pretty securely, otherwise you're going to have hair coming out. So do it very well. If you're using wool, you probably won't. If you're using wool, you probably won't have that issue. Any type of hair, probably going to try to work its way through. And that looks about right. Alright, so this is sewn. I bled on it, but it's fine. It's sewn now. Yeah. So I already went ahead and pinned this to what we're using for our ties. It's just inch wide twill tape in a natural color. It looked like the original was sort of off-white, so I chose the natural one instead of the white one that I had, but you could do either, I would assume. And so I made it about 10 inches longer than my waist because I'm going to cut it down a little bit. And I took this one, and of course we pinned it on just like you see here, and I pinned this one on top, and I'm going to sew by machine just against that line to attach all this together. And then we're going to put this one on the top part of it. And here it is sewn. And now we're going to put this on top. So I nestle it like in between the rest of the layers. Alright, petticoats. So I went ahead and cut them out. Didn't want to film it because that's just going to take too much of our time. So I'm using the Truly Victorian patterns for petticoats. So I'm using View 1, which is the 1870s, and View 3, which is the 1880s. Both bustle petticoats. So, not using the natural form one or the 90s one. So, already off the bat, and I knew I was going to have to do this, I'm going to have to make a few adjustments. So, obviously, I need to make sure it fits my hips. So, I cut it according to my hip size. My waist is about 3 or 4 sizes smaller than my hips, according to the pattern. So, that needs to be accounted for. So instead of cutting the waist, the size of my waist, and then just gradually, cutting it to make my hips fit, I just decided I was going to take an extra on the darts. So I have about 4 inches to take up, and so I'm taking ½ an inch more on each of the darts than the pattern calls for. The pattern calls for inch wide darts. I'm doing 1.5 inches on all 4 darts on both petticoats, and then I'll take the extra 2 other inches up in the very back when we gather or pleat that. Now I'm going to sew the backs together, the center backs together, I suppose. Of course, I need to leave this open back here because this is the center back opening dress or petticoat, whatever we're making. It's late. That's what happens when I start things at 8 o'clock at night. By the time I get around to cutting things out, it's like, I don't even know what time it is, honestly. Late enough where I probably shouldn't be working on anything, because this never ends well. Alright, so I have my back that is now pressed and my little center back opening, and then I have my front and my sides that I pinned together. I'm going to pin this to the back now. This is for the 1870s petticoat. The 1880s petticoat, I'm going to sew the front and the sides together, but I'm not going to sew the sides to the back yet. The directions say to, but that makes no sense to me. I think I should put the ruffle on prior to doing that and then stitch it all at once. That makes way more sense to me, logically. Alright, now we're sewing ruffles together. Or actually, these aren't ruffles. These are the flounces. Ruffles are next. So the flounces, there's 4 for the 1870s petticoat and 2 for the 1880s petticoat. The 1870s ones need to get sewn in a circle, so all the way around. They'll be all attached like a giant circle. And the 1880s ones do not get put in the circle. I just have the one seam to sew the 2 pieces together. Alright, let's sew some ruffles. So I realized that because the machine had been doing some weird stuff, I changed the needle, did all that. It was still being very persnickety. So I went back and tried to figure out tension issues. That wasn't the issue. I was threading the whole thing wrong for the last few weeks. So she's happy now. She threaded correctly. So any puckering and things should be fixed now. I do have a friend here who's helping me. She is sitting in my skirt. I don't know why. But she's very happy. So I guess she's going to stay here. And then Puppy Dog is over there. You can see her foot. So, yeah, lots of little helpers. I don't know where the other one is. So yeah, let's go ahead and start some ruffles. Let's see how happy she is now that I've sewn her correctly. I'm talking to her owner on my phone. So if my phone beeps, that's why. I was telling her the machine's not happy. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And then she suggests rethreading it, and then I realized that maybe I don't know how to thread her. And so I looked it up, and it turns out I don't know how to thread her. So that fixed all my issues. And look, she's sewing perfectly now. Alright, hemming the ruffles. So this is the 1870s ruffle, which is very, very long. Longer than the 1880s one by a couple of, well, about 90 inches, I would say. So, yep. Just hemming. And now we're going to attach flounces to the upper petticoat. So this is the back part of the 1880s one. And here's my ruffle. Make sure I have right sides together. We're going to pin this. Match the center back, so both center backs. And match the sides. Now you have to do the same thing for the 1870s one, except for the 1870s one is going to take longer because I have to do the whole petticoat and not just the back part of it with the flounce. Alright, now with the flounces on the petticoats, we're going to work on the ruffles. So for the 1870s petticoat, I've decided to do, I call them Van Dyke trim, or Van Dyke trim. I've heard it called triangle trim. Basically, it's these little triangles, very, very similar to what we did on the 1830s silk dress. The sawtooth edging, you also hear it called that. In modern quilting terms, it's called prairie points. Anyway, we're going to do that on the petticoat. So I put one on the flounce, which I already did, and we're going to do this one on the ruffle. I get those mixed up, the ruffle and the flounce. So I have a 7-inch square fabric, or rectangle fabric. I found that for 45 inches of fabric, I got a 25-inch piece of trim. So that's how I kind of measured that. So I needed 4 panels of 45-inch fabric to go across for the flounce, and I need 7 for the ruffle, I think. We're going to fold over about half an inch. About half an inch, I don't measure anything. On both the top and the bottom, so we have nice clean edges. Then we're going to fold it in half and iron that. Trying to match the edges as closely as you can. So what I am going to do, and I took this tutorial from Koshka the Cat's blog. She has this up there. But I'm going to put the opening on the bottom. So there's the open part. And we're going to need some pins. We're going to fold down this edge to make like a little triangle point, okay? We're going to pin that. Now we're going to take this long edge and put it down to make the actual triangle. Now this is the wrong side of the fabric because we'll use this as the good side. So now you have this. We're going to fold it that way. So we just took this long end and we just folded it. And then we're going to fold that up. And we can do the same thing. So now we have this part again. We're going to take this, push that down, take our end, fold it this way, and then fold up. Alright, so I am pinning the sides to the back for the 1880s petticoat since we have a ruffle sewn in. So, yep. So it looks like the 1880s machine, so it looks like the 1880s petticoat is going to be entirely sewn on the original 1880s machine. The 1870s one, I was having a little bit of a difficulty with the trim work because it makes it very thick, and the original machine doesn't like to sew through that, but my modern machine will. So I'm going to do that. So the 2 seams that have trim on them for the 1870s petticoat are going to have to be done by modern machine, but it'll still be mostly done with a period machine. So I did the math, and basically it's I'm just marking every inch, and so I'm going to take up an inch for every inch pleat. Alright, let's pin the ruffle to the petticoat. So I have here the flounce bit with our trim already sewn or pinned on. So there's the flounce, right side up, tucks or trim, right sides down. So right sides are together, and then we're putting the right side of the trim, or the ruffle, sorry, it's late, on top. So, and then I get to sew it. I've been sewing it in quarters because again I don't have enough pins. So I've been sewing this on the modern machine because my period one does not like this many layers with the Van Dykes and the fabric and then the ruffle. It's just too much for the little antique. It's a little too much for the little antique one to handle. So winding down on the petticoats, putting the waistband on. So I decided to do buttons and buttonholes on the petticoats, which may surprise you if you've been on the channel long, because y'all know how much I hate buttonholes. And here is the petticoat. So this is the ruffle that is hemmed, and I just opted to put the lace on top of it. Alright, here we are with the last step. I'm just sewing on the ruffle. Actually, the ruffle's sewn on. I'm top stitching right now. And this is the last step for any of our pieces. It is 2 o'clock in the morning again, so I am not trying this on tonight. We'll try it on tomorrow. Okay, 1880s bustle. We're doing a lobster tail style. Original's on the screen. So yeah, I chose a cotton twill that's in a similar stripe. This one has a little extra stripe, a little orange one, in between the white and the gray. But otherwise, it's very similar to the original, so I picked it. And it was cheap and in my budget, so that's it. So last night at 2 a.m. I drafted out the pattern, so we're going to see if this works. I kind of hope it does. But my track record with, 2 a.m. stuff is never good. So first of all, let's go ahead and bind. This is the very top ruffle. And so we're going to bind it. So this part is the top part. That's going to go into the waistband. And it looks like from the original I only want to bind the bottom part. So I have some wool twill tape here. It's really hem braid, but we're going to use it. I dyed it red, just like the original. And we're going to do this by machine because there's no reason not to. Here's the bottom ruffle. I did forget to mention, on both ruffles, I am lining them in tarlatan because it's very crunchy and stiff. Figured that would be good for a bustle. And while we're on the subject of prep work, I decided to do like all the braid at once, so it just makes it easy. I can just sew it all on. So this is the main bustle part, the lining part, and I am pinning 1/2 inch braid on it. And I got lots of little parts. This is going to be where the boning bits, because the description does not say that there is any boning in it. However, while looking at it, I can see boning channels. And to me, that says boning. Alright, so I have the lining bit. So here's the twill tape we put on before. I am binding these edges on either side. So I'm leaving the top part and the bottom part undone right now. I'm just doing the sides. And I am going to skip where these channels are because, well, obviously I need to put boning in them. So I'm going to go up to that channel, skip, and then keep going. Alright, here's our lining piece now. This is the back side, so, well, this is really the part that goes against your butt. And so there's our twill tape. This is the wrong side of it. I put the marks on there. It's hard to see on camera if I did put the marks on there. They're a little crazy because I had to figure it out while I was doing it. But now it should be okay. I'm going to take put wrong sides together. Take the big piece. And I did run gathering threads on the marks. So the marks on the pattern, I put those in and they're gathered. There's that one. We're going to do the same thing with this half. And then honestly, we're going to take, and then this gathering bit here matches the mark we made here. So you're going to sew across that line. So I'm going to pin all these together and I'll get back to you. Still working on doing the poopy bits. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. I sewed this one and I sewed that one. So this one is done, and I'm just going to kind of folding them over while I work on the next one. So I got this half pinned. Same thing. This one happens to be really easy, the second one, because it goes right underneath this piece right here. So I can feel for it and know exactly where to sew. So that's helpful. Here we have the bottom ruffle. I've just pleated it up and it curves very nicely on its own, even though we cut it straight. And now we're going to attach it to the bottom of our butt ruffles. We're going to sew it right on this other seam line that we did. So I'm just putting it on there. Oops. Alright, we're essentially getting something that looks like the original, so yay! There's two of them stuffed out. They're a little large, but I think it's fine, so we're good. I don't know if you can hear it on the camera, but like the hair like crunches like horsehair does, which is kind of awesome. But okay, let's go ahead and stuff it. It's taking about 2 hanks of the jumbo Connectulon hair, a little over 2 hanks, to stuff each one of these out. So I've used, I don't know, I had 6 of them and I cut them all, and this is what I have left. So this is going to go into this one. There's probably a little bit left over. I got more hanks somewhere that can stuff off the big one. So. And then when it gets hard to stuff, taking the wrong end of a wrench because it's thick and using it to stuff the hair all the way back. That's very weird. But I already had it in the sewing room for another issue, changing the needle on the original machine. And I was like, what did I have that stick? The scissors weren't working. They were too thin, but the other end, the handle end, was too thick to fit through. Like, I need something that's fairly thick but not too thick. And wrench answered that requirement. Stitch that down, gather this down, and then do this one. And when they all get stuffed, then we'll come back and stitch that line by machine. So here she is stuffed. What I'm doing right now is we already discussed how I was going to take this and sew that down. So I have that sewn down on both sides. Now what we're working on is taking the lacing strip and putting that in. So here's the one I put in already. Lacing strip ended up being 14 inches wide finished, or long really, 14 inches long. So I cut it 15 inches, and then just turned in there to the ends. It's not even finished really. You still put your finger in there and that sort of thing. And then I cut it 5 inches wide, folded it in half, and the folded end ended up being the end with the eyelets. Ruffle time! So, top ruffle. Pleated it down. Looks like on the original there were 4 pleats. So the center, there's a meat, and it's just box pleats basically. And there's a space that's about 2 3/4, more or less, that's left blank here. So it's just 2 pleats. The original showed this bound in the cream colored stuff. But I didn't have enough of the cream color stuff for the waistband and to do that, so I just did it in red. So that's a little deviation. I'm just going to stitch this on. Alright, so nearly to the last step. My waistband, I did put that on. It was a 2-inch wide one because I ran out of the 1-inch wide, so I just folded it in half and sewed it on the edge. So, and I also put a belt buckle on it. So, that is all done. I ended up sewing the waistband on the bottom of that twill tape and on the top, so it's like sewn twice. Very secure. It's a heavier bustle, so I want to make sure it's going to hold. But we're putting in boning, or pane in this case. It is a little difficult to find your way in there. You got to kind of go backwards then forwards to find the hole. Once you get in there, just kind of push it all the way to the end. I've been cutting it just a little fast. Kind of pushing it all the way in. Now we can sew up all these edges. Alright, we're ready to try out some bustles. So this is the combinations that we made together. Cover it with a petticoat because split crotch, not fun. Corset we made together. Petticoat we did not make together because I already had this one. So it is what it is. But yeah, I used to do my hair in the 1870s, 1880s hairstyle, and I am loving it. It took me about an hour to do because it was not cooperating, but now I like it. So I have this pretty little reproduction comb by Miss Beth Miller Hall in here, and the braid is mostly fake, but yeah, like, it looks really good. For a first try, it looks really good. Alright, let's put on some bustles. Alright. So there's that one. It feels pretty good. But yeah, there it is from the front. Just a little buckle. I'm actually using 18th century shoe buckles, or reproduction shoe buckles from the 18th century. It seems to work really well. It was the right size. It was the inch wide, and it has those little prongs that goes to the quilt tape really well. So I do know that, what is it, Wooded Hamlet? Needle and Thread from Gettysburg has little buckles that they sell with their hoop kit, and they sell them separately too. It was just kind of a hassle to call them and then have it shipped here. It's much easier just to do the whole thing online. And I needed wool anyway from Burnley and Trowbridge. And I needed wool anyway from Burnley and Trowbridge, so it was a good excuse to go get that. And then just have buckles as well. So that's what this is. But yeah, the back. Very nicely padded out. Gives me a nice shape, I think, on the side. Let's put on the petticoat. I think it's a good length. About where it needs to be. It's actually a little bit big in the waist, which was surprising to me. I thought I cut it down, but it's okay. But yeah, it's an 1870s petticoat. And look, there's the shape of the bustle. Very slight, so it'll be really good for like the working stuff. Try not to step on a dog while I do this. But yeah, that's fun. That is really fun. And if I step any further back, I'm going to step on her. But look, there's the triangly bits. Yeah, that's really cute. I really like that. Yeah, it's a bustle. It's not as pronounced as the other one's going to be in just a second, but it's there. So I think it'll be really good for like working class bits. And it's really not hard to sit on. It's just a little pillow. But yeah, so 1870s stuff. I think I should go get out of this and go put on the 1880s one. Alright, 1880s lobster tail. So yeah, it looks like a lobster tail. That's exactly what it looks like. So yeah, let's put this one on. I did loosen the laces from what we did last night, so yeah. Okay, that'll fit so much better now. Oops, I got it cut. This one's heavy. I'm glad I had the 2-inch ribbon and folded it over. That worked really well because it is heavier, which I think is more of the fabric than anything else. Make sure it's really up there. There we go. Look at it. It's there. Yep. A little crooked is what it is. There we go. I was actually really concerned about sitting in this one, and it actually really isn't that bad. I sat in it last night, and that was when it was still a little bit too big, or too small really. It was too tightened. I think it could have been a little bit wider, maybe an inch on either side, just because of my hips. I think it should have kind of, like it does fit with my hips, it's just slightly too small. I think it needs to just be an inch on either side, but for a first try, it's not bad. If I wanted to do it again, I have plenty of fabric. I just don't feel like doing it right now. I think for right now, this is good. And if I ever wanted to upgrade, say I start doing a lot of 1880 stuff, then I think I will, I'll know what I'm doing now. It won't take as long. Although really, I cut it up. I really made it all yesterday. So, and then I finished the petticoat too. So, it didn't take but a full day. It wasn't that big of a deal. So, yeah. It is very cute. And I see why they call it lobster tail. It makes sense. So yeah, the lobster tail bustle. Let's put on the petticoat. Alright, there we are from the front. You can see where you can actually see it. From the side, there's a bustle there. It's definitely there. And then from the back. So, it's a little extreme, I think even for the 1880s. So I could have made it a little bit, those floofy parts, the I guess we call them ruchings. I could have made those a little bit narrower. Instead of doing 5 inches, I could have done 4 inches, and that would have pared down the width of it just a little bit, but I think it's fine. So it's definitely a bustle. So not my favorite time period, but yeah, I'm very curious to see what it would look like with the original dress. I might have to go pull that out of the freezer and like put it on the mannequin with a bustle. I think that'd be cute. And because I said I would, here's the original dress that I've been talking about. I just absolutely adore her. And I've never felt that way about an 1880s dress before. But like, look at the little detail. Look at it. But yeah. So, good news is, the bustle fits a variety of sizes because I'm a lot bigger than Edith. And it fits her really well. It doesn't fit me terribly either. I mean, an inch on either side, but it really doesn't fit me terribly either. And it fits her really well. But yeah, I'm really glad I put her on Edith, or the bustle on Edith, because now we can see that it actually works really well with a variety of sizes. So, yay!